Welcome to the Caregiving Podcast. I'm Inga.
And I'm Julie.
And long story short, we have Caregiving. We are two momtrepreneurs who have built an in-home care business from the ground up, guided every step of the way by God's care and fueled by agape love. Almost 14 years later, we felt called to create this podcast as a resource for families with caregiving needs. Whether you care for a family member or are looking for advice on professional caregiving, we want this to be a platform to support you.
Each week, we will come to you with encouraging stories of families who have found the right balance for their loved ones, tips for how to care for them and you, and much more. We hope you continue to join us each week as we share in this exciting new journey together.
Hello, Sunshine, and hello, Julie. How you doing?
Oh, well, I just took a drink of my tea, and evidently it must have gone down the wrong hole.
Oh, no.
But I'm okay.
I'm glad to hear it. I really was watching, because if things started to go super south, I was going to jump in there and help you out.
Righto.
But
yeah,
it was quite the spectacle.
As usual.
But anyway, I knew you had it under control.
Oh,
I had faith.
Oh, good.
What's happening
good to know
behind
you
me?
Cut your back.
Oh.
Is the cat there?
I don't know. I thought you were looking at something.
Oh, jeez, you're weird.
Okay. So how are you?
I'm good.
How's life?
Busy.
Yeah.
Always.
What's new? You've been roading some cows.
Oh, yeah. Getting the cows to market, you know, just every Thursday taking a load down and just that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
it's all
It's
good.
that time of year for you, huh?
It is. And what about you?
Let's see. We've been ultrasounding some sheep and, seeing what's going on with our pregnant ewes. So we're excited about that. It's always like Christmas, right? Yep. So doing that. And let's see, trying to stay warm. It's been pretty cold out.
Yes.
Planning for Thanksgiving. That's
Oh.
going to be coming up here pretty soon. And
Fun.
I'm excited. It's my favorite.
Yes.
So we'll have our feast here in the office and then a feast at home. And I even bought a new dining room table. I think I might have mentioned that before, but I'm so excited about it because it seats more people. And what's really cool also is at church right now, we're on a section or basically the topic of the table, essentially. And so we'll have several sermons on that. So I'm excited. So far, it's been really good.
Oh, right on.
And
So let's tell everybody what we always do. I mean, I don't even know how many years we have done our day before Thanksgiving spectacular.
Yeah. So basically, we just prepare a meal here in the office and invite all of our caregivers and all of our clients to come in and have a meal with us. We get the chance to serve the people that work with us and the clients that we get to work with. And then if someone can't make it, or maybe, they don't have a Thanksgiving meal for the next day, actual Thanksgiving, we box that up and we deliver and or let people take extra food when they leave. And it's just the best day. I love it.
Yes. And to be honest with you, I step back and I let you do the organization and cooking of it because you have a way.
Yes.
You are very particular and I just get in the way. So I'm just like, you tell me what needs done and I'm happy to do it, but you
I just love
sister,
it.
you're doing a good job.
Thanksgiving is just my absolute favorite. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is. It always has been. So, and I actually heard Bailey say the other day something about Thanksgiving being her favorite. So I've done my job well.
Yay. I love it.
Yeah.
Good.
So tell me this, Julie.
What is it, Inga?
How did you perceive your grandparents when you were little?
Oh, goodness. I was lucky enough to have both sets of grandparents. Dad's grandparents were rather close. So that was Walt and Effie. And what we would do when we went up there was, more of the ranchy stuff, more of the sledding on the big, huge hill with all of the cousins. It was always a cousin event, and it was just fun because on that side, there's just tons of cousins. And just being with Grandma and Grandpa, that was just always very special. She was very, very into her garden and flowers, and then she had these chickens that were really mean, and I'd have to go out and get the eggs. And but we would, she had pansies. She had just lovely.
I can tell that you're just totally envisioning all of it
I am.
as you talk
I'm just
about
totally
it.
going back, and I really miss that.
Yeah.
And then with Grandma Pat, and then she had Grandpa Bill with her. We just that one was always a party because Grandma was the hostess with the mostest.
Yeah.
And she just loves to do that, have dinner parties and this and that. Just wonderful. Food.
Yeah.
Food everywhere, food.
Nice.
Hugs and love and just very, very, very blessed to have had both sets of grandparents for as long as I did. Not everybody's that lucky.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Yeah. And you?
Well, I have like my dad's parents and then my mom's parents and then great grandparents. And so kind of similar with you, we have one set that was pretty close to us growing up. And then also my dad's were just a couple hours away. And my parents always made a very big effort to have us spend time with our grandparents, whether that meant, we were traveling somewhere and meeting halfway. I remember with my dad's side of the family, we would always meet at Quinn's Hot Springs, which anybody who knows Quinn's Hot Springs in Montana, if you knew it, 35 or 40 years ago, it's just wild, the difference in it now.
Right.
But we used to meet there. It was kind of a halfway point for my dad's family that was from the Washington area. And anyway, so I remember that. And then with my grandma and grandpa Fisher, I just, they've always been just like the wisest, biggest presence, if that makes sense. Grandma Fisher, from the time I was little, like she just knows everything. There's nothing that she doesn't know. And she can talk to you about things in a way, that she explains them that makes sense. And I still see her that way. I mean, I think we talked about on the episode that we did about the stroke, that was the first time in my life ever that I have seen my grandma not be just this absolute powerful presence. And it's back now.
Yeah.
So she's just kind of like a goddess to me, honestly. She's just, I have so much respect for her and so much love. And yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I'm so blessed. I just had the best. Both of my grandmas were like exactly what a grandma should be. I mean, always good food, always wanting to serve, always wanting to teach and learn and grow with the grandkids and super supportive of everything. I couldn't ask for anything to be different.
Oh, that's so wonderful. We're pretty blessed, both of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I love that. I like
very
that.
much so.
Yay.
Yeah. And the thing about my grandmas is if there was somebody that didn't have a grandma, they were always ready to adopt. Anybody was welcome. So
yeah. Oh, that's great.
Grandma Dolores and Grandma Fisher.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, let's move into the verse then.
Okay.
So we are talking Proverbs chapter 17, verse 6. And this says, grandchildren are the pride and joy of old age, and children take great pride in their parents.
Yes. I picked that just because our topic is because of children's perception of their grandparents. And I do remember one time my dad, I had just had our first child. It was Bailey. And of course they ran up there and they were first ones to, besides Aunt Vicky, be right there when the baby was born. And I remember Dad holding Bailey and looking at her. And then all of a sudden he goes, this is what's great about being a grandparent. She stinks. Fix it.
Nice,
so
Dan.
we wiped the bottom, we did our thing and gave it back to Grandpa.
That is fantastic. That is one thing that I do look forward to when I'm a grandparent. Also, I want to do the fun stuff and they can take care of the stinky parts.
Right there. There you go.
Yeah. Well, listeners, if you have a verse that you'd like to share with us, please do so. You can email those to thecaregivenpodcast@gmail.com. Let's talk about good news and uplifting stories.
Yes.
What do you have for us today?
My goodness. Speaking of grandmas, there's a grandma in New Jersey, and it says, New Jersey grandma's brutal system for ranking her 10 grandchildren goes viral.
Oh, boy.
And this lady, she's so funny. She has 10 grandkids, and she literally, and we'll put it on the show notes. It's so funny. It's on TikTok. But she has a board with magnets on her kids and says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right.
And depending on if she's ticked at them or they've done something special, they get ranked.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's really funny because one of the grandchildren is actually a comedian. So he's telling people that my grandma, right now I'm a number 4, and that's the highest I've ever been. But anyway, he goes, but I just got 2 tattoos, so I'm thinking it might lose my number 4. So anyway, Mary is going viral for truly playing favorites. But so what's so funny about it is that as the comedian grandson is explaining it, he's says that, so Jacqueline, cousin number one, who's got number one spot, is because she bought a house across the street from Mary and helps her out all the time. He said, so she deserves number one. She's deserving of the spot. She puts in the work. Then Gianna, a veterinarian, is also a favorite. He said, because Mary loves animals and values intelligence. Adrian is always at the bottom because she gets a lot of tattoos and doesn't call enough. And then Jessie is a golden child until she moved to California, and now she floats in the middle. But anyway, the reason the comedian got up to number 4 was because Grandma is now famous on the internet because she went viral. And so she's giving, he actually moved up to number 3 because Nanny is excited about being an internet star. She's giving me credit. The day after the TikTok went viral, she went and got her hair and nails done. Being married and having a kid will get you moved up. But if you have a kid and you're not married, that will get you bumped down. That's what happened to Tanya. Oh, Dan said that the wooden ranking board has been hanging in Mary's home for about 5 years, and she takes it very seriously. Some people were getting upset and saying, you can't rank your grandkids, but hey, we're all adults. It's her way of making sure we check in with her. Tough love is definitely her thing.
Oh, I love that, Mary.
That is hilarious.
Nice job.
So cute.
Oh, that's great.
I love how the whole family's just into it and they just totally embrace it.
Yeah,
nobody's offended. It's just still just something to laugh about.
That's great. Oh. That's awesome. Well, my story actually is about a group of teenagers and a bit of a learning experience. So it says, I can still remember the feeling of being a fresh teen and thinking I knew it all. Teenage years are that extreme learning curve between childhood and adulthood. Making mistakes is simply a rite of passage during the time. Although this isn't unique, what is unique is when teens make a mistake and have the maturity and the humility to own up to it. And that's the root of the story I'm going to share with you all today. Just recently, a group of young teens came in to eat at a Los Angeles restaurant prior to heading to their homecoming dance. They were excited to be eating at a restaurant with friends and not their parents, and even more excited for the dance later in the night. Their server knew how special of a night this was for the teens and went above and beyond to make their dining experience amazing. And so he was dismayed when the teens paid their bills and only left him $3.28 as a tip. If you've ever worked in a restaurant before, you know how hard of a job it is. Servers make a very minimal amount of hourly wage and rely predominantly on tips to pay their bills. The server was obviously upset and questioned why the teens would leave such a deplorable tip, especially with the wonderful service they received. However, he soon forgot about the incident and went about his normal routine until he received this note a week later. The note reads, about a week and a half ago on October 7th, my 3 friends and I came to eat at this restaurant as our own homecoming celebration. It was an exciting experience for us to be here alone, and it was all new to us. And you were the best waiter we could have asked for. You were kind, helpful, accommodating, didn't treat us like babies, and were even able to fit the food to all of my allergies. So I wanted to say thank you for making our grown-up experience so amazing and fun. I would also like to say sorry on behalf of my group. Since we were new to all of this, our 13-year-old minds didn't exactly know how to deal with the bill. You were super helpful in dividing the check up and taking our not so preferable cash. The bill was reasonable, but we had completely forgotten and frankly didn't know what a tip even was, let alone how much to give. So we emptied our pockets and all of our money added up to $3.28. Not aware of how small this really was, we left clueless of what we had left you for all of your hard work. Later, we realized our mistake and felt horrible. We knew we had to make it right. So in this envelope, you will find the correct 18% tip plus extra for simply being so amazing. We appreciate your help and patience, and thank you for making our night fun. Thank you. And then basically, it's just pretty cool to see a group of kids not really knowing, making a mistake, realizing they had made a mistake, and then doing something about it to correct it.
Oh my.
Yeah. That's very powerful to me because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot what you see these days is people making mistakes, and then instead of ever just owning up or recognizing, it's almost like they dig in worse and have to justify or defend.
Yeah.
And so I just think that there's always hope.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that story.
Yeah.
That was sweet.
Again, readers, or not readers, please go read something and send it to us. Listeners, if you have a good news or an uplifting story or anything like that to share with us, please send those to the caregivingpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes. Please do.
Yep.
Very good. So today's topic is about talking to kids about grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we've never talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And really, truly, you know what? Boy, there's an impact as people are getting older on our older people. And that's what we've been focusing on. And it just hit me that, wait a minute, there's a lot of little people that are watching this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to do to bring them into these changes?
Sure.
Some of these changes are darn hard and very emotional. And just depending on the relationship that these kiddos have with their grandparents, how intense is it going to affect them?
Yeah.
So some of these things are just tips. Some of these things are just things to think about. If you've got little ones that are watching grandparents go through hard stuff, don't forget them. Mm-hmm. We can't forget our babies.
Right. I mean, we need to make them aware of what is going on. And I think it's always been my view that honesty is best policy, of course, to the degree that the child can understand and comprehend.
Yeah, true.
But I do think that pretending like nothing is happening if you have a grandparent that's going through something is not necessarily the way to go, because I hadn't stopped and thought about it until you brought this topic to us. But what is the perception? What does the child understand or not understand, comprehend or not about what is going on? And what are we doing to make sure that they're educated and aware to the best of our abilities and to the level of what they can comprehend and take in.
Yeah. So just thinking about my own personal life, Grandpa Bill passed when I was young, and I really didn't wrap my mind around it.
Sure.
I saw my mother grieving, but still didn't really, I mean, of course we loved him and missed him and all of that, but just didn't realize what my mom was going through
Sure.
at that time. And then there was Grandpa Walter, after Grandma Effie passed. I remember Grandma Effie hit me pretty hard, but I was in my early 20s. So it is not like I was little, and then I remember going through Grandpa Walt, and then just most recently, within the last 2 years, my dad. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you're going to just have things to process. So yeah, then thinking about a little person that doesn't have that adultish,
right?
That's what I call myself,
adultish
attitude about what life and the perception of it. To think that, what are these little guys thinking?
Right. Well, and even it's going to make a big difference. I think about my brother and his wife and kids. They live very close to my grandma. I mean, like, they're next door, right? So as things happen with Grandma Fisher, it has a far greater impact to the kids because they're used to the day-to-day there, right?
Sure.
Whereas if it's a grandkid that maybe is states away, or you only see grandma on Christmas, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can talk. I mean, things like even with your kids, talking about aging grandparents. So kids might say, well, how come grandpa doesn't play ball with me anymore?
Right.
Why doesn't grandma take me for a walk like she
Right.
used to? Why can't I go spend the week with grandma and grandpa? Just things like that we need to be able to explain to our kids what's going on.
Right. Right. Oh yeah. Every summer I got to go to Grandma Patsy's, wherever she was, and spend a good, week or so with her. And that was always incredibly special. If she hadn't been able to do that, that would have been a really big void in my summer and my time with her.
Yeah.
So
We all did as grandkids. We all got our week with grandma. And yeah, so thankfully that did not change while it was happening for us as grandkids, but I can see with my brothers, the great grandkids, a big difference. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So basically, everyone ages differently, but certain changes have the most impact on grandchildren. One of the first differences is the change in energy. So here you have had this person that goes and plays ball with you, or whatever your thing is, and then all of a sudden they're just not able to do that. So basically, that is the most noticeable to children during an extended time with grandparents when they need more frequent breaks.
I'm sorry, it's not funny, but I was just thinking about myself, because not only does it happen with grandparents, but there is also a teenage-ish time of life where you go from being a kid and wanting to play to then all of a sudden you're a boring teenager and you don't want to do anything but take naps.
Rolling your eyes.
I just remember my cousin Jody, like I idolized Jody, and I think she's probably like 5 or 6 years older than me, somewhere in there. But anyway, I remember one summer visiting her, and she was a teenager at that point, and I was like, why are you so boring? Like, what happened? I don't remember this. And she wasn't at all.
She was just
wasn't
in a different
my level of kid play that I was like, what is happening? Anyway, so it doesn't just happen with our grandparents. It happens with our teenage cousins also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what they say when it comes to the declining health is that children may express fear or disgust if the older person has obvious disabilities or differences that the child has not seen before or doesn't understand. And going back to what you were just saying about at a different age seeing things, I very often in home care, I literally have to tell a family member, you need to come see your mom. It's been over a year. You have to visualize the decline. So even adults dealing with their elders, their parent, their grandparents, it's shocking to them when they come back and say, oh, geez, I thought things were better because she sounded great on the phone.
Right.
And then it's a huge reality check.
Oh, yeah.
Once again, let's bring it back to the kids.
Right.
Holy cow. They're just like, oh.
What happened?
Yeah, grandma's not as clean as she used to be. She's sometimes stinks nowadays. Well, it's because she's having a harder time keeping washed up, getting in and out of the tub. And, but sometimes as a bratty little kid, you're like, ew.
Right.
Ew. And so we've got to be able to open up and talk to these kids about these changes.
And also remember that like health problems can include mental changes as well. So it's suggested that it can be difficult for grandchildren because they don't always understand why a grandparent may have trouble remembering things or remembering people, important events, or that they may seem angry or sad. And so in addition, changes in housing for a grandparent may have a difficult impact on grandchildren. So say somebody goes from living at home and then now they're in an assisted living, or they've had to be moved into a skilled nursing or whatever that looks like.
And all of the memories are at grandma's home.
Yep. It's interesting too. My mom and her siblings have, so I have all of the memories in the farmhouse that it was actually a schoolhouse that my grandpa remodeled into a home. That's the memory that I have. But my mom and her siblings grew up in a different house that my grandpa had built that was just next door. So all of their childhood stuff is from Canavan's house. But Canavan's bought the house, and now it's not Mrs. Canavan anymore. I think it's Mrs. Hall. Anywho, that's where my mom, that's what she has. But we have the schoolhouse.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
Interesting, huh?
Lots of changes there.
Yep.
So they say the most important thing to do is talk to your kids.
Yep.
And so, okay, what age? When are they going to start comprehending things? And one psychologist said it's important to start discussions with children older than 3 as the changes begin. So basically, there was a mom who was able to involve her 4 children in the caregiving process of their great-grandparents. She said life transitions are inevitable, and children need help processing them. Learning to discuss what's happening and how they feel is important.
Yep.
Yeah.
And once you begin addressing grandparents' changes, it is important to provide explanations in an honest and open and an age-appropriate way. Basically, allow your children to guide the discussions and answer what they ask without going into excessive detail or going above their developmental level.
And that's really hard because there are a lot of us that always talk at a higher level to our kids than we should. And so really got to think about how much can this person process?
Yes.
This little guy.
Yep.
And not talk to them as an adult. You and I would have a different conversation than if we were talking to little ones about what was going on. And we have to think about that because I know that there's been a few topics that I was like, did I give too much information?
Every time this one particular vet comes to my house, I'm like the 3-year-old looking, my eyes are crossing. I'm like, I don't know what you said to me. So I'm just, in my mind, I'm seeing this all play out, giving too much medical information to a small child.
Yes, right. So they encourage parents to offer reassurance that the grandparents' love doesn't change because of where they live or the physical changes of getting older. And also explain that the changes might affect the grandparents' interaction with the child, and we got to figure out different alternatives.
Right.
How are we going to now speak with this person that maybe has aphasia and can't talk like they used to, you know?
Yeah.
Can't hold you like they used to.
Even on the physical side of it, like you're saying with holding, if a grandparent can no longer pick up the grandchild, maybe it's a situation where instead it's, well, come sit with me, or maybe you can sit on my lap, or sit next to me. But how do we accommodate and move as the situation changes?
Yeah.
To not lose that.
That reminds me of a book that my mom got for us, and it's so sweet. And it talks about a mother's love when she has her baby, and it shows the progression of the little guy getting older, and as he's getting older, she's getting older.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, it shows him starting to take care of her. And the first picture is her holding him, and the last picture is him holding her.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Oh, goodness sakes.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, if a health condition is considered terminal, the diagnosis and initial changes can be an opportunity to ease into a discussion about death as a natural part of life. This gives parents a chance to answer questions children may have and to share their thoughts about heaven and what happens when we die. There was a mother of a 14-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. Her mother had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and had recently stopped treatment. She said that while it had been a difficult change in the diagnosis for her children to accept, she doesn't believe in sheltering them beyond reason. She advises parents to know your child and how much information they are capable of handling. So when Lewis's son questioned why his grandfather had turned into a Krabby Patty lately, possibly me on occasion, she explained that her parents had been married for quite a long while, and that it was hard for Grandpa to deal with the idea that he might be alone in this illness when Grandma passes away.
So I think what we're talking about here is not just little guys. We're talking about medium kids and then even older, like how I was discussing how I had to deal or how I personally dealt with the big changes in my life with my grandparents and my dad. With my children, with the business that we have, we do... People don't want to talk to us until they have to, right? They're in crisis. And we see a lot of people starting to comprehend that this is a decline and things are changing. With that, what I did with my family, be it right or be it wrong, but I actually talked to my children about 3 different things. And one of them was, if I die young, it's okay. I've had a hell of a ride. It's been a good one. And, but I said, and grieve me, but don't then just know that I will see you again in heaven.
Right.
And I'm giving them permission to move on.
Yes.
The other things we talked about is my cognitive decline. I'm just like, hey, if I'm mean to you right
I'm
now,
apologizing in advance.
if I'm mean to you now, it's because I want to be. But if I get Alzheimer's or dementia, please put me somewhere so I'm not mean to you. I'm not going to saddle you with me.
Right.
Being, and you never know how you're going to be when you get that disease. But I just was giving them permission once again to feel okay with putting me somewhere. And the biggest thing was I just felt it was so important to give them permission to know that they needed to grieve, but not let it overwhelm them, and then move on, because we would see each other again.
Yes.
And that's my way. And, everybody's got their way. There are some people that won't talk about this topic at all because it's all absolutely taboo.
Right.
So who knows what's right? Who knows what's wrong? You just do the best you can with
That's
knowledge
exactly
you
it.
have.
Make the best decision you can with the information that you have and what works for you.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about is there's going to be a few different scenarios of helping kids, like when we have to move somebody from the home to the nursing home or whatever. Yep. But talk about teaching your kids compassion and empathy. Once again, I hadn't really thought about it till we read this about where a child might be grossed out or bummed out that they don't want to see their grandparent anymore because they remember them in a different way.
It's interesting. When my grandpa was at the end of life, there were some cousins that were internally could not be there because they just didn't want to remember grandpa that way.
Right.
And that is individual, right? It's not that they didn't love him. It's not that they didn't care about him. It just was an internal struggle that they just couldn't be there.
Yeah.
And so I had a hard time with it at the time, but I've since been able to kind of take a step back and understand a little bit more about.
Sure. Oof, that's tough.
Yeah. And I'm the opposite. I mean, I'm the person that's like going to run in and what can I do? How can I help? You were talking about something earlier today about being a fixer. And I think a lot of times in this, I'm what I tend to do with my family is take a very practical approach and a very fix it. How do I fix it? So for me, learning more about the compassion and the empathy is probably something that I need to listen to, just because it's all business, right? Okay, we've got this problem. So what are we going to do? How do we handle it?
Right.
What's the next step? You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to learn to slow down.
Oh, Lord.
And say, you know what? Maybe this person just needs you to sit next to them and hold their hand.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm trying to go through that right now with a personal situation, and I wanted to fix it. And I realized that I was coming in as the bull in the china shop because that is not what this person needed. And I really didn't understand that till they finally told me, like, you're killing me, Smalls. Right. And I was like, I was just trying to help. And I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we're talking about children of all ages. This topic is children of all ages. So basically they're saying physical changes associated with aging can range from fading eyesight to broken bones to being bedridden. All challenges that present plenty of opportunities to teach children how to be compassionate and empathetic. So when grandparents' eyesight begins to fade, parents are encouraged to help grandchildren to offer to read to the grandparent, which can reinforce the bond that they share.
Interesting. If you want to have your kids understand a little bit more about that fading eyesight, you can actually do a sensitivity exercise by having them wear glasses that have like Vaseline smeared on them. Yep. Or try to pick up an item with two fingers taped together.
Oh, yeah.
Just learning. And we did the Alzheimer's dementia simulation.
Yeah.
That was very, very eye-opening.
Oh, my word.
But anything to let people understand a little bit more about what someone is going through.
Yeah. COPD, that remember on one podcast we talked about if somebody's having problems with breathing, take that little stir straw and plug your nose and try to breathe just through the stir straw for a minute.
I tried to breathe through a McDonald's straw, and we all know those are big. I didn't plug my nose, and I thought I was dead in like 5 seconds. I'm like, somebody's going to have to put me down. This is not going to work for me.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So
for sure.
Breathing conditions, you get winded because you walk from the couch to the bathroom. These are things that these kiddos see, and it impairs everything, that energy level and everything.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity, because as we're talking about kids, I'm a kid too still.
Right.
And actually, it was a couple of weeks ago, my mom was going to get to go and visit her sister in Missoula. And so myself and Bailey, we got to go spend the night with Grandma. And I know it was really important to Grandma, but I don't know, and I'll probably cry, if she knows how important it was to me.
Oh.
So just spending that time and getting to play Scrabble and make a meal and have dinner together. And those little things, you can still have a connection. Maybe we can't go outside and do things, the physical things that we used to, but we can always sit down and, tell a bad joke. Grandma's great for that. And, play a game or just be,
Oh, yeah. And actually, I got to be honest with you. This discussion, I'm actually surprised at how emotional it is.
I know. I don't even know what's happening.
All of these memories from the wonderful
childhood,
that I had, and all of the different things that I did with all of my family. And unfortunately, as we grow, everything changes.
Yep.
And what I have found is, unfortunately, looking back on how I was raised, things aren't the same. I can't raise my children the same way because we didn't have that big ranch as you know, and these are the things that I cherish, but then you have to kind of figure that out and move on. You can't sit there and just dwell on what could have been or should have been, or where are you and what are you able to offer? It's just, actually, I'm really surprised by this.
I know. Who knew that we would
knock it
stir
off,
up
you
so
guys.
many emotions?
And I hope that if somebody's listening to us, it helps them think about all of the awesomeness in their lives as they grew up and the good times, you know? And so for sure. So basically, when we're talking about adolescents too, so we're talking about a little older than, you know, the teenagers and such. So have these kids run up and down the stairs and get the things that grandma and grandpa need and do those physical things that they can handle.
We used to, my grandpa used to always take a nap before dinner, and in the old schoolhouse, he was on the third story, right? So when it was time, it was like, it was this thing where we either really wanted to or really didn't want to wake him up.
Yeah.
Because basically how you woke him up is you would just go and you would like lift up the blanket at the bottom and like tickle his foot just a little bit. And then he would snort and grumble and growl and you'd run out. And it was just such a game. But I remember that up and down the stairs.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And, yeah. Grandparents love to be treated like royalty. So if you do that, if you ask them, what can I do for you? Or can I get you some coffee? Or can I fill up your Cheeto bowl? Or can I, whatever it is. I mean, they love it. And you can't help but feel good when you know you are making them happy.
Oh, right. I love that. Yeah. That is so good. That is so good. So one of the things that we really need to do for our kids is encourage them to share what's going on in their lives, because our grandparents eat that up. Oh, yeah. They want to know.
And they're so smart.
Yeah.
So wise. Grandma Fisher, there's never been an issue in my life that I haven't been able to talk to her about. And then I just walk away like, oh, she knows so many things.
I know. No, very often calling Patsy saying, oh, Patsy, help me.
Well, they want to know. They want to know because they also want to be able to tell their friends what their grandkids are doing.
A little bit of bragging going on there, bragging rights. But also, kids need to ask their grandparents about their history. That's one of the things that when I meet people and do home visits and they become a client of ours or whatever, I always think, oh my word, the stories that these people have. And let's just learn more about them. And you always wish you would have met them earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, that's one of those things that I think that, people don't always like to have pictures taken. But man, once that person is gone, you cherish every stinking picture you have of them.
Yeah.
And so what is your history? What is your history and what can they tell you?
I do like that too, making sure to not just make it about you, but what's going on in your life? Is there anything new at church or what's happening with your friends? And just including the grandparent, that their story is just as important.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are the sandwich generation, right? We have our kiddos.
Yep.
We have our spouses, and then we have our parents, grandparents. So we're stuck in the middle. And usually at this age, we're the ones that start taking a little bit more control of everything. But basically, they talked real quick about how to talk to your children from the sandwich generation about aging children. And basically, they just say it just continues to get more and more complicated. It's never easy.
As with everything
never
in life.
Easy. You have to deal with the aging parents, but you also have to deal with your children's issues and confusion about what's going on with the grandparents. And so, how are we going to explain that? So a few scenarios is we talked about grandparents moving out to the nursing home or that, but what about if grandma moves in?
Yeah.
That changes the whole dynamic of the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the new rules? Shh, grandma's sleeping. Just like you just said about grandpa.
Yeah.
Oh, he's taking his nap. From 4 to 5, he takes his nap because dinner's at 5:15.
Well, and anytime, even if you have just a friend come over, or like my niece Lainey has been helping out a lot at our house. And so when she comes and stays the night with us, it is interesting how different the dynamic is when you add another person into your home.
Oh yeah.
You don't think that it would be that big of an impact, but it is. So I can think about small children and teenagers and how how just crazy it would be to bring another person into the home, and that it would require a lot of discussion. And how do you feel about this, and what things are changing?
And usually we don't think about the kids. We just start saying, this is grandma's room now. And you guys, everybody, shh, shh, shh.
Yep.
And they're like, why? We used to just run around here, just a wild child, you know?
I think I've told the story before about Thanksgiving basically my grandma's sister at one point was like, oh, Marion, how do you stand all the kids and the noise and the mess? And it was like, that's what this life is all about, isn't it? The kids and the noise and the mess.
I love that.
Yeah.
The kids, the noise, and the mess.
Yes.
Oh, that should be the title of this. The kids, the noise, and the mess.
Yes.
And then when there's a mental disease or dementia, it can be very frightening for kids.
I personally have been to some of our clients with dementia and have been frightened myself. And I feel like I'm way more equipped to deal with those situations.
Yeah.
You know, when grandma's either doesn't know what's going on or maybe having some delusions or things like that, you know, the kids you have to be able to be supportive to your kids and help explain to them what is happening.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And then at the end, one of the toughest discussions is when somebody has passed.
Yeah.
And you just don't really understand that, except that they're just not there for you anymore.
Yeah.
So
it's hard. And like you said, even as a young adult, I think you knew that your grandpa had passed, but you didn't really know.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But I think it makes a difference too in how intertwined, you know, are we talking about the grandparent that lives in your home or the grandparent that lives next door or the grandparent that lives in New York, or, you know, it's going to make a difference on how you process that. But
yeah,
discussion is, and I think as a, just as a community, we are getting better we talk about things a lot more.
Yeah.
Than
mental
than we
health
used to.
has really come into the forefront. And so that's huge because coping with a death is really a big deal for, you know, they have those things. If you've had these 5 things happen in the last year, you are crazy because you've had so much to deal with. And death is one of the very top ones. And so if it's impacting you, how in the heck is it impacting your kids? Yeah. Once again, I'm a talker, if you haven't noticed. And I think that just preparing them very gently and making sure that they get to say goodbye, but watching for cues on how do they want to do that?
Yes. Yeah. That's very, very true.
Yeah.
I think it was my brother after my grandpa had passed that was having a hard time. I mean, my brother and my grandpa were very, very close, Grandpa Fisher. And so basically going to the mortuary, I guess, and it was a difficult decision for him. For me, also a difficult decision, but I got so much peace from going and seeing my grandpa because he didn't look sick anymore. He just looked back to like the vibrant Grandpa Fisher that I remembered. And so, you know, everybody has to handle it individually, but knowing that there are options and knowing that whatever you choose to do is okay.
Right. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you've had a loved one that's just been riddled with pain, and now they've passed, you know, how can you just feel better saying, now they're whole again. Right. Now they're without that pain.
And I think we all tend to say they're in a better place, but we can say it, and then it's how do we process that and do we believe it?
Yeah, yeah, true. And there are some people that just don't want to hear that either. Yeah. I mean, honestly, we're all so different.
We have a friend that's just in a horrible, horrible situation right now. And, you know, I think everybody's just wants to tell her, oh, you're so strong and it's going to be okay. And I just said, you know what? It's hard and it's going to be hard and it sucks. And it's okay to say that it sucks and it's okay to feel that way. And you don't have to be strong. You don't have to hold everything together because what you're going through is terrible. Yeah. And for people to just continue, oh, it's just a good thing you're so strong, right? Nobody wants to hear that.
Oh, guess what?
Fall apart. If you need to, fall apart.
Yeah. And,
We'll put you
and
back
that's
together.
probably the best thing to do is to really be able to acknowledge what's going on and just say, I'm not strong anymore. I tried and it's been too much. Yeah. But boy, you're absolutely nailing it. Yeah. And so, once again, we can talk about all of the different diseases and all of that, but really there are big feelings of fear, despair, helplessness. These are a big deal. So how are we going to help our kids? The best thing you can do for your child or teenagers to be completely honest and just keep the lines of communication open. If children understand, they could act out by doing badly in school or withdrawing or becoming impatient with their loved ones. Physical or psychosomatic ailments such as stomach aches or headaches may manifest themselves as well. And let's just kind of talk about quickly just Alzheimer's. There's a really nice question and answer session here.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, some things that these kids are trying to process is the question, is grandma crazy?
Right.
And so what is it? No, she is not crazy. It's a disease. She has a disease. And older adults are prone to illnesses that may make them forget things or act differently.
Right. Yeah.
And then something I never thought about, is it my fault? Boy, that one hit me.
Yeah.
You know what? We do that to ourselves, right? Yeah, certainly not. If grandma told you that, it's just the disease talking.
Yeah.
Because sometimes with that disease or somebody's in chronic pain, they just say things that are not kind.
Well, and what about a child thinking, can I catch it? Can mom or dad catch it? Having that right in front of you.
Yeah.
And not understanding. But basically, of course, with Alzheimer's, it is not a contagious disease.
Oh.
So you can't catch it like you would a cold or a flu.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, anytime you have a kid that's watching this disease progress, especially with an Alzheimer's or dementia, it can be just very frightening.
Wow. And then what will happen next?
Yeah.
You know what? When I do home visits with people, one of the things they're asking me is what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And all I tell them, and a lot of people are thankful that I say this, and it's very, very simple. Bring it down to roots. The only constant at this point is change. And they just go, oh, I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. Because I said, once you get a routine, then how many days later is it going to change? Or every 5 minutes. Yeah. So don't beat yourself up.
Understanding that you cannot control how that disease progresses.
Huge.
Is big.
Huge.
I just had breakfast with a friend from another state, and I didn't realize that she right now has a parent that's going through some dementia, Alzheimer's. And I was so neat to listen to her talk about, she's like, yeah, I just roll with it. Mom will call and say, get the girls together. We're going to go have lunch in San Francisco. And I just roll with it. And because she's not going to remember. And I'm like, you are so smart to do that and really recognize and understand that you can't control what's going on with her, and trying to explain or reason or rationalize with someone that has Alzheimer's or dementia. I mean, you'll drive both of yourselves crazy.
Right.
You're not going to change it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. But I was just very, I don't know. I was really impressed with her. And I think a lot of people do. She's like, I just have to get in the moment. I just have to be with her wherever she is.
Oh, what a blessing for
you
both
are
her
so smart.
and her mama.
Yep.
And then understand that.
She also has a teenage daughter that was there with us. And so the teenage daughter is listening and, picking up on this. And so it is an inclusive conversation with the kids to know what's going on.
And very open and honest. See, that's huge.
Yep.
I love that example.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've talked about some heavy stuff, but I got to tell you, I found the most hilarious thing about children's perceptions of their grandparents. And I thought we'd read a couple of those because they're just adorable. So she was in the bathroom putting on her makeup under the watchful eyes of her young daughter, as she had done many times before. After she applied her lipstick and started to leave, the little one said, "But Grandma, you forgot to kiss the toilet paper goodbye." I will probably never put lipstick on again without thinking about kissing the toilet paper goodbye.
That's funny. I probably won't now either. What about this one? This is hilarious. My young grandson called the other day to wish me happy birthday. He asked me how old I was, and I told him 80. My grandson was quiet for a moment and then asked, "Did you start at 1?"
Do you see the different perceptions of these babies?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, gosh. After putting her children to bed, a grandmother changed into old slacks and a droopy blouse and proceeded to wash her hair. As she heard the children getting more and more rambunctious, her patience grew thin. Finally, she threw a towel around her head and stormed into their room, putting them back to bed with stern warnings. As she left the room, she heard the 3-year-old say with a trembling voice, "Who was that?"
Oh, that is funny.
Oh.
Grandma probably doesn't usually storm.
She's always put together.
Yep. Oh, funny. A grandmother was telling her little granddaughter what her own childhood was like. We used to skate outside on a pond. I had a swing made from a tire. It hung from a tree in our front yard. We rode our pony. We picked wild raspberries in the woods. The little girl was wide-eyed, taking all of this in. At last she said, "I sure wish I'd gotten to know you sooner." You do say that all the time, and I think you already said it today, that you wish with a lot of our clients, "I wish I could have known them sooner."
Oh, yeah. My grandson was visiting one day when he asked, "Grandma, do you know how you and God are alike?" I mentally polished my halo and replied, "No, how are we alike?" "You both are old," you replied. Old turkey.
Oh my gosh. A little girl was diligently pounding away on her grandfather's word processor. She told him she was writing a story. "What's it about?" he asked. "I don't know," she replied. "I can't read."
I didn't know if my granddaughter had learned her colors yet, so I decided to test her. I would point out something and ask what color it was. She would tell me, and it was always correct. It was fun for me, so I continued. At last, she headed to the door, saying, "Grandma, I think you should try to figure out some of those colors yourself."
Stop making me do all the heavy lifting. Come on, Grandma. When my grandson Billy and I entered our vacation cabin, we kept the lights off until we were inside to avoid attracting pesky insects. Still, a few fireflies followed us in. Noticing them before I did, Billy whispered, "It's no use, Grandpa. Now the mosquitoes are coming after us with flashlights."
When my grandson asked me how old I was, I teasingly replied, "I'm not sure. Look at your underwear, Grandpa," he advised. "Mine say 4 to 6.
That's great. A second grader came home from school and said to her grandmother, "Grandma, guess what? We learned how to make babies today." The grandmother, more than a little surprised, tried to keep her cool. "That's interesting," she said. "How do you make babies?" "It's simple," replied the girl. "You just change Y to I and add ES."
She must have been really worried about what's coming out of her mouth. Oh, gosh. Let's see. A grandfather was delivering his grandchildren to their home one day when a fire truck zoomed past. Sitting in the front seat of the fire truck was a Dalmatian dog. The children started discussing the dog's duties. "They use him to keep crowds back," said one child. "No," said the other. "He's just for good luck." A third brought the argument to a close. "You're both wrong. They use the dogs," he said firmly, "to find the fire hydrants."
We'll wrap it up with this one, and this is great. A 6-year-old was asked where his grandma lived. "Oh," he said, "she lives at the airport, and when we want her, we just go get her. Then, when we're done having her visit, we take her back to the airport."
Oh, my gosh. Out of the mouth of babes.
Oh, yes. Always.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Why
That's
don't you
hilarious.
wrap us up with a grandma saying?
Oh, right.
Although we just had, I guess it was kids saying things to grandmas.
Lots of sayings today. So Allison actually said that her grandma would say, "Mind your P's and Q's." So I'm like, what does that mean? So anyway, basically, whenever they were going out to a party or going somewhere social, they would always say, "Mind your P's and Q's." And so she thought that it had to do something with eating all your vegetables. So I took peas to mean peas. Yeah. What it really refers to is to keep track of how many pints and quarts you've consumed at the tavern so you didn't end up drunk in a bar fight or jail. And she said, "I'm pretty certain Grandma didn't really know the true origin of that one."
I had no idea, but I love that. Mind your P's and Q's.
Yeah, pints and quarts.
Wow. I love that. That's a good one. All right, peeps. Well, if you have not yet done so, please go and subscribe. And you can do that on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Be sure to join our Apaga Care and Share Facebook group. And send us your verses, your good news stories, your grandma sayings, anything you'd like us to share. You can do that at the caregivingpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
All right.
Love it.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Have a good day.